So this is all about this project query that we had. Now we will move on to our third segment. And as you know, this is a segment where we learn from others' experiences, because peer to peer learning from others is always the best way to learn. So this time we have a very special guest. He is engineer Muhammad Atif Nawaz. He is a manager in RV Consultants Hyderabad, and he is working on Chennai Metro rail project as of now. He has past experience of working in the, or he was associated with the Bangalore Metro project also. Uh, he is quite active on in the structural forums. He is a associate member of iStruct E, and most of you might have seen him on LinkedIn, where he has a large following of close to 29,000 people, and he is very active on various Telegram groups also, where he helps and guides young structural engineers and upcoming structural engineers. So I would like to welcome engineer Muhammad Atif Nawaz to today's episode. Hello and good evening.
Hello, good evening, sir. Good evening to everyone. Thank you for having me. It's always good to be interacting and talking to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining and taking out time on a Saturday. So we would like to ask you some questions, and then probably we will open up to audience when they can also ask or take guidance from you. So first of all,
Sure.
I would just like to ask that tell us a few things about your journey so far after you did your BTech and MTech. What you have done till now, in short, if you could tell us.
Okay, since I did my BE in civil engineering, that was from my native. And after I did civil engineering, as most of the people, I didn't had much idea regarding what's to be done next, whether to join a job or to explore other things. So what I did was I chose to do MTech. Uh, that is why I shifted to Bangalore from my native. Um, so I did my MTech from Bangalore. From there, that was the turning point of my professional career, I would say, because before moving to Bangalore, I did not have much of professional what's going around in our industry. So going to Bangalore, doing my MTech from Bangalore helped a lot to me in understanding what's going on and how our profession is. So um, my first job after I completed, I joined Bangalore Metro. That was my first job. Actually, the Bangalore Metro had conducted a written examination for the recruitment. So I had attended it and I had qualified that written exam. And at that time, actually, my MTech project was going on, academic project. That was on wind tunnel testing on high-rise structure. So
Okay.
while I was doing my project, so I got a call from Bangalore Metro that I have cleared the recruitment and I have been selected in the recruitment. So I had to cut short and wind up my academic project, and I joined Bangalore Metro. So in Bangalore Metro, I worked around like 4 years, 4 years in the planning and design division of Bangalore Metro. So I spent 4 years there, and then that was how my journey. That is how it started.
Okay. So, as of now, as you told us that you are right now working in Chennai for Chennai Metro Rail project.
Yes.
So, what is your
Yes.
current role with RV Consultants, and how are you involved with the project? If you could tell us.
Okay. So presently, as you have said, I'm working on the Chennai Metro project from the consultant side. So presently, we are having the stations part, the design of stations of the Chennai Metro corridor. There's one stretch. It's having an elevated station. So I'm the part of the team which is looking after design of stations and station in the sense like the substructure and superstructure part. So there are some 15 elevated stations. So presently I'm working on that part, designing of elevated metro stations.
Okay. So, what are the challenges that you face in your day-to-day work right now? Any challenging
Uh,
things
so
that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, or anything, any project or any part of the project that you found very challenging and you were able to overcome it?
challenging what I have encountered from my experiences, and which is also an important thing, is to make sure how the construction is going on the site and what how we do the design. There should be a link, or it should be the behavior, how actual the construction is going on site and how we are structurally designing it sitting in the office. So that should be as close to reality as possible. So there was one situation where which I can share right now is there was a land to be developed. I mean, some buildings and structures were coming up. So there was a canal, nala running in the place that had a box culvert that had to be provided with a box culvert. So
Yeah.
in the vicinity, we also had a building. So the building was actually close to that box culvert. So
Okay.
the problem we had faced was the columns of the building. Few of the columns were infringing with the box culvert, the nala structure.
Okay. uh,
So there was some constraint that we could not shift the alignment of Nala, I mean the location of that box culvert, and a lot of buildings were need to be accommodated in the space. So few of the columns were actually sitting on the box culvert, one or two columns if I remember.
okay.
So rest all columns were normally starting from the foundation. So
Okay.
here there was this concept of floating column, which we
Yeah.
generally describe. So one or
uh,
two columns that were starting from the box culvert structure. So my thing
okay.
was how we actually going to deal with this. So first, what I did was I called up the structural engineer which was looking after this project. So I sat with him and asked him like how is the construction process, because construction process is very essential, like how the structure is actually going to be constructed at the site. In the design, it should be as close to possible. So it was
Correct.
like the floating column, this thing, floating column, that if the box culvert is concreted first inside, without leaving any dowels for the column that is resting on top of it. So there won't be any, that won't be behaving as a monolithic structure. So I
Correct.
had asked, I had a detailed discussion that how the actually construction sequence is going to take place in the site, and based on that discussion, so that floating column I had to incorporate in the model. So again, as we know, dealing with the floating columns in the design part, it's like there are 2 to 3 ways. So releases are there. When we release, there is a transfer girder or transfer slab, which we call as. So that should be capable of taking the load. And when we, if at all, we are releasing something in the floating columns in the model, we have to make sure that the same is replicated at the site in terms
Correct.
of behavior. So for
Yeah.
that dowel action, construction sequence of the these things, so that was a very good discussion. So I had a discussion with him, and we discussed the plan, like how it is going to be constructed. The same was incorporated in the model. So this is
Correct.
what one incident which I felt was like such things we often deal with in our day-to-day practice.
Yeah, so this is very important. Maintaining, having a sync between what you are designing, what your assumptions are, and how the construction sequence is going to go on site, and how you are representing that on your drawing. So it's very important that a sync between all these three things should be maintained. Very important point, what Atif told us. So here I just want to ask you that when you were in the Bangalore Metro project, you were looking after the buildings of metro, isn't it?
Yes,
Ancillary buildings. And now you have
yes,
shifted to, as I understand, the hardcore metro project. So
yes,
this switch, because most of the practicing engineers are doing buildings in design, or they are associated with building design. So if a practicing structural engineer wants to make this shift from buildings to infrastructure, or metro to be specific, rail projects, so what will be, or what path he or she can take for that?
Okay, so I can share with the participants like what I did. I mean, how was my journey? How I shifted? I had the shift. So first
Yeah.
and foremost is since I was working in the Bangalore Metro, so I was in the vicinity of the metro designs. In the sense, I had the colleagues, I had a team that was working on the viaduct stations part. So I was in constant touch. I was regularly looking at the designs, like how the metro design is done, what are the factors that are need to be considered and all. So first thing is this is what motivated or what transpired my shift. So I had a basic idea of metro design, what and all comes in design and how we encounter. Second thing is whoever wants to shift in the from buildings to metro, what I would like to advise is first get to know the overall picture of how the metro system works. I mean, it could be structural part, or it could be like how is the what are the forms? Like when we say bridges, there are a lot of forms. There is a slab with a T-beam bridge. There is a box girders are there. There are a lot of forms of bridges. So whoever wants to do it first, I can advise this first get to know the how what are the forms, what are the bridge structures, how they are designed. For this introductory, getting a lot of videos are available on YouTube, like how we actually go about the design of metros. So this is the second thing. Third thing, what I can suggest would be like get familiar with the codes.
Oh,
Now, since we are in the building design, we have seen 456 IS 456 a lot of times, so we know how is the design of beams, columns, slab, etc. So when you want to shift from buildings to metro, what I feel is get yourself familiarized with what codes are actually used in design of metros. There is the IRS codes, Indian Railway Standards, that are being used. Again, for metro designs, again in IRS codes, there is CBC, Concrete Bridge Code, that is used. There are a lot of other codes. IRS seismic code is also there for seismic design of metro structures. So getting familiarized with how the design process is from the code book. So this, and if possible, you can read the drawings. I mean, any metro or any bridges drawings, if you can get through some colleagues or study the drawings. So this is what I actually used to do when I was in Bangalore Metro. I used to study the drawings of metro stations, the viaduct part, how things are, so I could understand. Once we see the drawing, we can understand like how what are the components, how the reinforcement is done. So these are some 2 to 3 things, and get a training. I mean, if at all possible, if you're having the access and all, nowadays a lot of bridge designing trainings are there. So
yeah.
one such training which I had attended was from IIDE, Indian Institute of Bridge Engineers. So actually, they had conducted one training around for a bridge design. This thing. So I had attended that. So it gave me a lot of idea, a good idea on how we need to be go with the design of metros. So such designs or trainings even that can help.
Yeah, very interesting. So being inquisitive is one of the most important things you should have, isn't it? You have to be
Yes, we should
inquisitive.
always be curious. Like if you want, yes, if you want to shifting, we need to develop, generate that interest, that learning, and that is most of the part is through self-learning. If you are able to
Correct.
find a mentor, that is well and good. Even if you are not able to find self-learning, you can
Yeah.
surely do.
So what are your long-term plans as of now? How do you see moving ahead?
Long-term plans. Now, since this, I have started my shift from buildings to the metros. So I'm actually
Yeah.
a lot quite curious and interested in this metro and the railway bridges design. So
Yeah.
most probably, I like to see myself working in this domain for a little longer. Since 4 years I was in buildings, so now probably I'll be exploring more in the bridges part, bridges design and the metro design moving forward.
So just out of curiosity, so Midas is used as a general software for bridge design in metro projects. Midas.
Uh, Yeah, actually, a lot of companies, it varies from companies to companies. Midas is one such software in which you can have a holistic, like entire structure modeling, 3D modeling that
Yeah.
can be done in Midas. And Midas is a
Yeah.
very powerful software that is popularly used in most of the these things. Also, along with Midas, even basic modeling of superstructure is also done in StatPro. I mean,
Okay.
again, in the thing when we understand the design, there is something called grillage analysis. That is the
Yeah.
simplified analysis of the superstructure. So that can
Yeah.
be done in StatPro also. Midas
Correct.
is like a complete package. You can design all the components of a metro, including superstructure and substructure.
Yeah. Good. Yes, if our live audience has something to ask to Atif, they can just type in their questions and we will take up your questions to him. So before, because you are here, I must ask you this question that you are a very active voice on LinkedIn and lot of Telegram channels. So, uh, and you write quite well. So those who are not aware, they must follow Atif on LinkedIn. So he writes quite well, and actually it is uh, very informative one thing, but it is thought provoking, I should say, especially for structural engineers. It should be his posts are worth reading. So because you interact with so many structural engineers and lot of people you interact with, what do you see some of the common problems that young engineers are facing these days? Because many hundreds of people ask you their doubts, their problems, they share their queries with you. So what, according to you, are some of the challenges and problems that are being faced by general young structural engineers, to be specific?
If we see like what problems like usually general, like if we are talking about 0 to 5 years experience range, so what problems they face is a lot of people generally when we see there are uh, too shy, too shy when it comes to learning new things or learning the things which they do not know. So this is something which I have learned after a lot of interaction from a lot of people. So when people are not knowing a thing, they are hesitant to ask their doubts or it could be their queries and anything. So I would strongly be suggesting like people to not to be shy at learning things which you do not know. A lot of people have that if I ask this, what the other person might think, whether it is too silly doubt to ask or they may have some perception. So what I suggest is to completely remove this from mind. And whenever you are not understanding anything and you want to learn something, the best thing is to ask others. Never shy from learning the things which you do not know. And it's very important even to understand what we know and what we do not know. So
Yeah.
unless we know like where we are lacking or where we are having insufficient knowledge, so for that to know, we should reach out to people. Uh, and again, when we reach out, whom to ask, how to ask. So that is actually a
Yeah.
skill which I can say which is beyond books. I mean, nobody can teach that this thing. Even if someone can ask me to teach someone how to ask their doubts to someone
Yeah.
or how to approach someone. So this is beyond books. This can never be taught, to be very honest. So this you will develop only the thing is by like talking to others. So this is what I feel. And I also kind of want to suggest people to be aware of what's going on in their industry. Suppose if you are a structural engineer like in the same profession, you should know like what are the current trends that are going on. Trends in the sense how the design is going on. For example, there are RCC structure. You should be knowing how the RCC structures are being designed currently in the industry, like how is the design process, what they are adopting, how is the methodology for different structures, how they are designing. So you have to be aware of how the process is, the life cycle, design life cycle. It could be of
Yeah.
bridges, it could be of buildings. So that awareness is the key, and how to get that awareness is by simple talking to others. A lot of
Correct.
time, what we do is we get busy with ourselves in the sense the daily works which we do. We only
Yeah.
concentrate on that, and we do not actually talk to others, get to know what's happening outside. So when that happens, we get ourselves into a shell. So I always suggest to talk to people, interact, get to know what's happening in our surroundings, and get to know the things that are happening in our industry.
Yeah. Correct. Very true. I remember a very popular ad campaign by Google, uh, which said "पूछ के तो देखो." So you have to ask. Unless you do not ask, जब तक आप पूछोगे नहीं, तब तक लोग नहीं बताएंगे आपको. And more often
Yes,
than not, I've also felt this, that if when you ask, people are happy to share their knowledge with you.
yes,
I mean, I have never met anyone to whom I have asked a question and he or she has not uh, given me the answer, or they have denied to share their knowledge with me. So people are quite happy to share their knowledge. आपको पूछ के देखना है.
kind enough.
Yeah, very true. So if our
Yes,
audience has
very
question for uh,
scientific.
your audio video is, I think, getting stuck. No, now it's okay. Yeah. So I think Mr. Hussein Mohammad Ramiz Raja, he wants to ask, I want to be in building. I am master student. What is the advice? So I think he is already,
So currently, he's a student or a passed out.
yeah,
If
I'm
he's
not quite
pursuing, I think,
sure.
if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
So
Oh, he has
maybe
written
he
a
can.
master student. So
I'm master
yeah,
student,
since
correct.
he
So
has
he's a
written.
student right now. Yeah, yeah, he's a student right now.
Okay. So, student, actually, I would like to advise you have a lot of good time in your this thing to actually plan and do the thing. So, if you are in the building, and what's my advice is, while you are in a student, read good books. Now, what do we mean by good books? I'll tell you one thing which I did in my engineering and masters, and that hampered a lot of my growth earlier on. So we read books that are easier for exams. I mean, the books which are easily completed, slim books that are from exam point of view, which are very good. So a student mentality is that even I did the same. I would not shy from accepting the fact. There was this Bhavikati book, if many people had referred for
Yeah,
RCC structural designs. It's quite a slim book, 200 odd pages. So I had referred that. The problem is in that book that is exam oriented. So for a student, it's very important that you read good books. Now, what are the good books? Even Ashutosh sir had shared it in one of the previous episodes. There's one good book by Pillai and Menon, RCC Designs by Pillai and Menon. Even sir had shared. So that is a very good book.
yeah,
Now, why I say that's a very good book and we should be reading from such book is from the for the very first time, some 4 to 5 years back, from that book, I actually understood like how a column behaves as a uniaxial moment, like how a column can have a uniaxial moment or a biaxial moment in actual
yeah,
scenario. So I got to know this by reading that book. How a column biaxial bending can happen. That is actually depending on the framing, how beams are connected in the direction. So from such
correct,
books, if you read, so you will get a lot of good conceptual understanding. So that book, even though it's some 600 odd pages, but I would suggest read from such books and do not focus much on the attendance part when you are a student and just go the classes, listen to what they think. As much as possible, when you are a student, try to talk with people who are working, practicing professional, so that you get to know where is that lack, where is that gap between academics and professional practice. So being a student, always talk to people, talk to practicing professional. So that can help a lot.
correct. Yeah, Pillai Menon is, I agree, it's extremely good book. So I still it is kept right in front of me on my table as we speak. It is kept on the table right now. So that is one
Yes.
book which I
Very, very good.
uh, yeah, just enjoy reading. So Mr. Jasdeep is asking, can you please throw some light on releases in the floating column? That challenging problem where columns were on the box culvert. So if you can throw some more light on the releases in floating
Yeah.
columns.
So, if at all you are releasing in the again, the practicing consultant have this two what you call school of thought. Few practicing consultant are happy with releasing the floating column, and few are of the school of thought that it should not be released. So, whatever you choose, that important thing is that should be reflected in the construction. I mean, the actual structure. So if you are releasing that, you have to make sure that when the structure is constructed, moment doesn't get developed at the bottom of the column. So how that essentially is done is by having arranging your reinforcement in such a way that it doesn't develop the moment at the base of the column. So whatever you have in the software, the same should be replicated as to how actually it's going to be considered on site.
Yes, thank you, thank you. So good. So thank you, Atif, for joining. And I'll ask audience to throw in some more questions if they have. And what we will do is that we will move on to our next segment, which is open discussion. But Atif will be on the stream. So if you want to ask some more questions to him, you can please type in your questions. So thank you, Atif. And we will please
Okay.
be on the stream. So if there are more questions, we
Yeah.
will bring you back in.
And I would like to thank you, sir, for actually having
Yeah.
me. And
Yeah.
also, I must mention before the close, like this is a very good initiative which you have taken. I mean, taking the discussion part where
Yeah.
participants can ask their doubts in the live projects, what difficulties they are facing. So that actually credit to you for having such initiatives where structural engineers can also share their experiences and project discussion can
Yeah.
happen. So it's a very good thing. And you have always inspired me and a lot of young structural engineers in your way of how you deal things. Very much
Thank you.
about your simplicity, how you go about work, and how you are giving back to the society in terms of the trainings you conduct. So that is really a very good job.
Thank you. Thank you. सो बी बने रहिए जैसे एज दे से स्ट्रीम पे आप बने रहिए एंड वी विल कॉल यू
Uh,
बैक फॉर क्वेश्चंस इफ देयर आर एनी so thank you, it was a very good discussion what we had with him. I would again tell all of you that you must follow him on LinkedIn. He, as I said, he writes quite well, so I regularly follow his posts whenever Atif is writing on LinkedIn. Good. So we'll just take up some questions for open discussion. So typically we ask you people to give in your questions, and uh, uh, many of you write your queries, questions, doubts, etc. So let me have some questions that we had curated for this episode. So Mr. Rahul had sent us, he had sent, actually he had done a lot of work. He had prepared some images and then he sent those images on the mail. So here he is asking, uh, and it's actually an interesting question. He is asking, and I would like to have the view of audience on this. So he's saying that by providing this type of a step column, if you see what he has done, he has an eccentric column and footing, and then he has extended the column at the base, if you can see in the light hatch. So he has extended that column on the footing, just near the top of the footing, and he is asking if by doing this, can we reduce the eccentricity of column load? So anyone would like to answer to this? I hope you got his question. He's saying that he has extended the column near the top of footing in this way, what you see as a light hatch. The dark hatch vertical is the column. The column is eccentric. So the axial load P will create a eccentric moment. That will be a pain for the design of footing. So can such an extension of column help? So according to me, if this has some axial load, then it may, and of course that eccentric, that center should be on the other side of the footing center, then it will help you to counterbalance the eccentricity. Otherwise I don't see this extension helping in any way. This is my opinion. I don't see this helping you. In fact, it will add to the eccentricity, or it will add to the eccentric moment if it is on the, if the center of this small extension is on the same side of the column center, isn't it? It will actually be counterproductive. So I don't quite see this helping you in a way. Uh, then his next question was, he has uh, he has this type of a arrangement, and I'll just put his question. Yeah. So what he has an existing footing that you can see on the bottom right side, and then he wants to add another footing above it. So this type of situations you are quite common when it comes to industrial structures. So these problems are quite often faced by engineers, that you already have an existing footing, and now over that existing footing you have to add another footing, or you have to put another footing. So he's asking, can we build one footing on the top of other footing? And the criteria condition is that the SBC is quite high. So according to me, this can be done. If your existing footing, you what you should do is you add up all the loads, see what is the size, what the size of existing footing was, whether it needs any size extension, and then you will have to provide some plumb concrete below it. What you have done now, assuming that the new area for the existing footing, if there is some additional axial load that is getting transferred to that existing footing, then you have to increase the area. So after doing all those things, this proposed footing can work. I don't see any problem with it. And Mr. Hussein also agrees. He is also saying extension will act as, yeah, this extension what you are seeing right now is a plumb concrete that they have provided. So I don't think it is being integrally connected to the, what I can see from this figure, it is not getting integrally connected with the existing footing. So it is acting only as a base for the proposed footing on the top of the existing footing. I personally don't have much problem with this. We also have provided such kind of arrangements. So this can be done. Yes, so this was what Mr. Rahul had to ask. Hussein continues, what software to learn and how to correlate with books and code. So, software, I think if you are in building line, ETABS, STAD, SAFE, this is quite helpful. More than software, you should understand the process of design that needs to be performed as a structural engineer. So right now at the master's level, learning softwares is good. See, uh, when we were in our masters, actually we didn't even know how to run software. To be very honest, I did not know how to use ETABS or SAFE, or I only had some basic knowledge of StatPro. So when we did job, that is the time when we learned everything. But we always had some good uh, sound knowledge of uh, design. That is one thing that we had during our masters. So software you can learn quite quickly and easily. You try to focus more on the design part, how the design is to be done. So that is quite important. Which books? So as Mr. Atif also said, books. Yeah, Pillai Menon is really good book for RCC design. And start with the basics. There is a problem that when we are in masters, we think that now we have become quite hi-fi, or we are now technically very advanced. So we tend to forget the basics. So stick to the basics. Whatever we are generally taught till fourth year of BE is more than enough in 90% of our work as a practicing engineer. So stick to the basics, learn from good books, and software you can learn anytime. These days, a lot of resources are available to learn online, offline. There are a lot of things that you have. Yes, Atif, if you would like to add something to this.
Yeah, I mean, as a first step, make yourself a target that you read the Pillayanan book from start to finish. I mean, this may sound very, very, what do you call, not a good professional advice, but make yourself a target. You read the complete book because all the structure behavior, the material behavior, and lot of problems which you will encounter in your professional practice are actually there in the book. So this many people will not believe when I say now. Start reading the
Mhm.
books from the good book pillar in many. You set yourself a target, and once you read the books, a lot of chapters are there on different components, retaining walls, file caps, everything. Pillar is the book which has almost everything. So read that, and software, as sir said, there are a lot of resources these days. So from tens of twenties of resources are there. You can learn online. There are tutorials. Softwares is the second part, as sir said. but understanding the behavior and the material behavior and the analysis part. So that I feel that you can get by reading good books, and also being in touch with the practicing professionals on LinkedIn or in platforms like Safi. I actually forgot to mention this. You many for students as well as this practicing engineers can also be on this beautiful platform called SETI, that is Structural
Yeah,
Engineering Forum of India.
yeah,
There, a lot of people ask their doubts, their understandings on certain this thing. Even I have an account 2016 to 17. Even while doing my MTech on wind tunnel testing, I had a lot of doubts. Wind tunnel
yeah,
testing was a new thing for me. So I had asked
correct.
doubts regarding wind tunnel on SAFE forum and I got the replies too.
Yeah,
So be in platforms where such discussions are happening. That's very important.
correct. Mr. Shamal is asking, his question is again related to floating column. His question is, when we provide floating column on cantilever beam always shows failure in overstressed. If so, I will just like to
Yeah.
add over here.
Uh,
So most often, what will happen is that when you have floating column on cantilever, mostly there will be very high shear forces, and if there is a little bit torsion in that cantilever, maybe due to slab or maybe due to presence of any other beam, this shear failure, your tau c max will become more than tau c, isn't it? And when this happens, uh, the only option available to you is to increase the beam depth. So quite often than not, these types of small cantilevers where you have some supporting columns or where you have some big spans, they are mostly failing in torsional shear. So you just go through the design output and see whether it is failing in shear. If it is failing in shear, no amount of reinforcement will help you. The only option available to you is to increase the size. So that is what I have understood from these types of situations. If you would like to add anything over here.
Yeah, that dimensions actually for that girder beam that will be, I mean, pretty much larger when compared to others. So increasing depth is, as you said, sir, that is a right solution. If it's failing each year, increasing the depth will help in counteracting.
Rahul is asking, oh, he's adding N. Subramanian is another. Yeah, N. Subramanian is again an extremely good book when it comes to steel design, and especially the manner in which he has compared a lot of international codes. He has talked about the philosophy of design, and then he has mentioned what is there in the Indian standard, how it is compared to the international standards. Those things are quite well given in Subramanian. Very good book. Mega is asking, I think this is for you, how to face and clear interviews. You can clear any interview, Mega. I am sure you can, whichever interview you sit for, you will easily clear it. Anyway, any
Yeah,
guidelines or tips?
just to add on, even me and Ashutosh sir know Mega from the trainings
Yeah.
which we were.
So,
So even I agree to sir, Mega is quite good when it
yeah,
comes to this thing. Structural design, she is a good engineer and she can clear interview. See, the basic tips is there are, as I have always said, in any interview there will be two parts. One part is basic things which every structural engineer needs to know. Second part is when they are hiring for a particular post, so questions will be asked on that. I mean, you will be tested on that part. So for first part, that is basics that everyone needs to be know. For every structural engineer, there are some common set of questions. There are SFD, BMD. We should be very much thorough with the SFD, BMD for frames and the behavior part. One thing here specifically I want to mention is the material behavior part. A lot of us, we don't focus much on the material part, like how, suppose for example, this concrete, there is steel, there is timber, how each of these materials behave, the material characteristics we don't put a lot of focus on. So in interview, questions will be a lot of on even the material part, like how the material will behave, or what are the properties of the material, what parameters or what aspects of the materials will help in the analysis part. So this, if we get to know, this will help. And the second part, whenever you apply for a specific post, suppose if you are applying to a post that is hiring structural engineer in, suppose say, bridges. So you need to prepare yourself in that. I mean, in a bridge segment, what all they can possibly ask, like they can ask what is the design cycle in the bridges, or what softwares are used, how much part of the professional practice of any project is done in a software, and how much part is done manually. So this is very, very important. In interviews, you should be knowing that in many softwares, if you're doing in Midas from start to finish, you can actually do pretty much everything in Midas. If you're using softwares like STAD and all from analysis, how you take the results, how you design. So this is part that which you should be getting to know. Second part that is specific to the post you apply.
Yes, good. Weber is saying, if we provide PT beams in structures, how can we incorporate its effect in designing other members like columns? Especially since PT beams have lesser depth, so if we model them, moments will be high. Yeah. So see, yeah, this is big problem. When it comes to PT beams, these days the sequence that is followed, the design sequence that these days structural engineers are unable to do PT designs. So what they do is they typically give their model to some PT consultant who is also the executor of the project, and then that agency will simply tell you that this is the depth of PT beam that you need, and this is the strands or the layout, whatever. Now the problem is PT having lesser depth. I don't have much problem when PT beams have lesser depth, because if the beam depth is less, the stiffness of beam is low. Actually, it will not transfer a lot of moment to columns, isn't it? It will have its own sagging moments. The moments at the ends of PT beams will be quite low if the depth is less. The problem, what I think of PT beams is that because they are so flexible now, your slabs, PT slabs, I don't know how they are able to behave in the lateral direction. So what we assume as the rigid diaphragm behavior and the way we do our lateral load design, lateral load analysis, I don't think that is valid when we have such flexible PT beams and flexible PT slabs. So I think in my, I am not, uh, I mean, I don't have much knowledge on PT. That is one thing that I also want to learn. But what I think is people are not paying enough attention on the stiffness of PT beams and slabs, which are very low these days. That is a big problem, uh, which which I think is when it comes to PT beams and slabs these days. Having said that, I would also like to learn more about PT structures. I am also trying to find some good teacher who can teach me PT. So if anyone knows any such teacher, please tell. I had found out that there is one person in Kolkata who is an excellent teacher in PT, but then you have to go to Kolkata to learn from him. That is what I understood. So Mr. Kashyap is asking, footing on footing, what will be effective depth and column from where to start? No, no, footing on footing, that was an old footing, and on that you are going to put a new footing. So they do not have any relation with each other. So the effective depth will be the normal effective depth for your new footing, and for the old footing, your normal whatever effective depth you generally have. So Mr. Rahul's query was that they had an existing footing. This is a very common problem in industrial structures. So you have an industrial unit, now the client wants to add up some more capacity, or he or she wants to do some more things, so they want a new structure right next to where you had a structure already. So this type of a thing is quite common in industrial plants. So those two footings are different. There's no relation to any of those two footings. Good. So anything else? Okay. So then I think that's all we have for this episode. Thank you, Atif, for taking out time on a Saturday and having such a meaningful and wonderful conversation. And we wish you all the best for whatever you do in future. And I hope you continue to guide the structural engineering fraternity, and all of us get to learn from you and your experiences. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. So that's all we have for this episode. Thank you. Thanks to all of you for joining on a weekend. I wish you good health and happiness. Enjoy the weekend. And then we will once again meet you uh, maybe in the third week of September with some new problems and their solutions, of course, with a new guest and with a new project to discuss. That's all. Thanks for joining. Bye bye.